Hi, it's Jeff here from RhinoCo Technology. In this video, I'm going to be explaining the main menu info section of the VIP Vision NVR8PRO6 network video recorder. While this has been recorded using an NVR8PRO6, the settings broadly apply to all VIP Vision network video recorders. Now, the first thing I'm going to do is right click and select main menu. Actually, I'll come back here so you can actually see me while I'm doing this. Go to main menu. Now, the first thing we want to do is enter username and password. So by default, the username 68 and the password is 68. Go OK, and now as we were saying, we're going to go to main menu. We're not going to go to operation, we're going to go to info. So info here is basically the whole menu is all about information about the recorder. It's not about changing settings or actually using the recorder. It's about information like events that the recorder is spitting out. So the first thing we're going to do is click System, and System has 4 options. The first one being HDD, then record, BPS, and version. So in HDD, it's actually showing you all information about the hard disks that are installed on the recorder. Now you can see that this particular recorder has one single 1 terabyte drive installed, which has a normal status, meaning it's working as we would expect. If I had additional drives, they would all be listed down in this list here. The NVR8PRO6 has a maximum of two hard disks, which can be, at the time of making this video, up to 10 terabytes in size each, so you could have up to a 20 terabyte storage capacity. So one interesting thing that we can do is view the smart status or self-monitoring and reporting status of the drive. Now this shows us information about the drive, so anything that might be going wrong with the drive over time, it will show up in here. So as we can see, everything in here is status OK. As an example, I suppose if we come down here to temperature, you can read this value off. So right now, the current value is 32. Its threshold is 0, meaning there is no point that it actually goes into error, but its current value is 32 and its worst value is 40. So it's 32 degrees at the moment, and the hottest the drive has ever gotten is 40 degrees Celsius. So if I right click to go back one step from there, that's basically everything that you need to know about this particular section. If we go next to record, so record shows you all the recordings that are on the machine, and it also will show you what hard drive they are on. So in this case, if we go back here, we can see that our hard drive was SDA, so that's our first drive, just in a normal Unix notation. So if we jump back here, you can see that these records are stored on SDA, or hard disk 1. So if you look at here, we have recordings. The earliest recording we have on this machine is the 2nd of March 2017, and the latest recording that we have on here is the 4th of March 2017. So at the moment, we've only got 2 days recorded footage on this machine. If you had multiple drives in here, you would actually see what data was stored on each drive. It's probably more of a curiosity than anything, but it does let you know if you did need to pull a drive out for whatever reason, you would know what footage was on the drive. So if we go to BPS, which is the next one in this list, this actually shows you the bits per second, so the data that's coming into the machine from each channel, so the video data being sent from each camera. Now we can see in this list that we've got a channel listing, so 1 through 8, because we have 8 cameras connected to this 8-channel recorder, and then kilobits per second, so this is the rate that the data is coming back into this machine. So channel 1 is sending it at 8,400 kilobits a second, channel 2 is sending it at 4,200 kilobits a second, channel 3 is a bit higher at 9,700, etc. Now these values will change depending on the scene complexity and a number of other factors, but essentially you'll see them sort of hover around about a value. Don't worry too much if they're jumping up and down a little bit, that's normal. So beside that, we have resolution. So it's actually telling us what resolution these cameras are set to. So you can see that channel 1 is set to 1920 by 1080 or 2 megapixel. You can see that channel 3, for instance, is set at 2560 by 1440, which is 4 megapixel. And if you look down the list, actually that's actually slightly less than 4 megapixel. If you look down the list for this one here, so 2592 by 1520, which is 4 megapixel. Now, if we take one look across from there, you'll see a wave. Now, this is basically a graph of showing data usage by the camera If you have a scene or a camera set to variable bitrate and you have a scene where you have intermittent movement, let's say for instance it was on a road where every few seconds you get a car coming through, you would see spikes in this footage here, like in the line. Basically, it's just telling you the utilization, essentially, bitrate utilization over time. It's just easier than having to look at a value and see if it's changed. So if we were having some issues here, like if there was some sort of a networking issue, you may see that this kind of stutters and goes all over the place. But in this case, everything looks fine. So the next thing in the list here is version. So under version, we have the device model. So this is an NVR. Record channel, so how many channels it can record. So it can record 8 cameras, 8 channels. It has 4 alarm inputs on the board itself, the main board for the NVR itself, not including alarm inputs that can be installed via cameras. And it has 2 alarm outputs, so it has 2 relay outputs on this recorder. The next things on here are the system version. So this tells you the firmware version that's on the recorder, and the build date is also related to the firmware version on the recorder. The web shows you the web interface firmware version. This normally will be updated with your standard firmware. If we get you to update firmware for any reason, this value here will probably change as well. And the serial number down here, which is used for a number of things like P2P or remote viewing. It can also be used by us if you're wanting us to look up information about a particular recorder. So if we move across to the next icon up here, so we go to event. Now, event shows you if there's anything wrong with the recorder at present or any events being triggered on the recorder at present. So what we can see is the options that we have up here are no HDD or no hard disk error, hard disk drive no space, IP conflict, meaning that the recorder has the same IP as something else on your network, net disconnect, meaning that someone's actually disconnected or there's an issue with the LAN interface of the recorder, and MAC conflict. Now this is something that should obviously never come up, but if for some reason there is a device with the same MAC address on the network, this will illuminate. Other things on this list here, we have external alarm. So that's an alarm being triggered on a camera. Video loss, also something like this is a camera specific thing. Everything down the bottom here is camera specific. So the top is all to do with the recorder and the bottom is camera specific. So we have motion detection, tampering, external alarm. So again, that's similar to what's above there for triggering external alarms, and IPC offline alarm. So IP camera offline alarm. So this will be triggered if for some reason a camera goes missing. Now you'll see that motion detection is lighting up with numbers down the bottom here, depending on which cameras are detecting motion. Exactly the same thing will happen when you see tampering or video loss or an external alarm on a camera. You'll see, let's say you saw it on camera 5, you would see 5 come up here in the list. So if we go back up the top here, you'll see that it's currently reporting HDD no space. Now, it says HDD space is insufficient now. This is not a problem, this is normal. The reason for it reporting that is because the hard disk drive is now full and it's overwriting. So by default, these recorders are set up to overwrite after a period of, after they run out of hard drive space. So that's essentially what's being reported here. If for some reason you changed it so that it would no longer report, it would no longer record over itself once it runs out of space, that's the only time you would need to pay any attention to this warning here. So if we go to the next icon at the top, the next one is network. So network here we have 3 options: online users, load, and test. So online users actually shows whatever you've currently got connected, whatever users are currently connected, I should say. So as an example, what I'll do right now is I'll connect using the mobile client. So what you'll see is as this connects, which is just connecting now, so if you look at that, you'll see that this is now connected, and you'll notice that I'm now connected via P2P. Anything, I should probably say at the moment, you'll probably see that it looks a bit strange that I'm connecting to IP address 127.0.0.1 as the admin. Now the reason for that is because I'm currently connecting via P2P. If I was connecting via port forwarding, it would actually show me the IP address of the person connecting here. or port forwarding, or if it was on a local network, obviously you would see that address here as well. So obviously I could block the user here if I wanted to, at which point, like so, it will actually kick me completely, and I won't be able to reconnect until the block time down the bottom has expired. So by default that's 60 seconds, but obviously you can change that. Now if we move to the next section, so load. Now load essentially just shows you, it's like if you were to look at Task Manager on a PC under the network section on Windows, you can see the current utilization of the networking interfaces. So at the moment we're looking at LAN 1. So LAN 1 is actually the LAN interface on this recorder. It is connected to some IP cameras. It's also what's connected to the local network here. So as you can currently see, it's not sending much because we're not connected to it using like a remote view client or anything like that. We're only receiving data from the cameras here. And you'll see that receive speed is currently 26 megabits per second. Now the reason why this is important is that you need to make sure that you don't at any point overwhelm the recorder or the recorder's maximum bit rate or your network interface's maximum bit rate. So let's say you had a 100 megabit connection instead of a gigabit connection into the back of this recorder. If you see this maxing out at say maybe 98 megabit per second or something around about that area, and if this line looks very flat and you've noticed issues, that's probably because you're plugged into a 100 megabit port and you need to be connected to gigabit. So as an example, if I now reconnect to this recorder, so you'll now see I've got 4 cameras up, and you'll see that our send speed has jumped up. So now that just gives you an indication of the data that's being sent. Now this is in megabits per second, as I explained. Receives also in megabits per second. So if we just take a look at the other network interface here, this is the switch interface, or the Power over Ethernet interface, I should say, PoE interface on the back of the recorder with 8 ports. As you can see, again, we're not really sending anything. This is there basically just like confirmation packets going back to the camera to say that we got the information that we're sending. It's all data that's coming in, so video that's being streamed to the recorder via RTSP. So the next thing that we probably want to look down here is the test function. So test essentially is there so that you can ping devices, so you can check to make sure that your network is up and working as you would expect it should be. And you can also capture, basically, you know, if you're having some sort of network issue, you can do a network capture that can be opened in, say, something like Wireshark, for instance. So just as an example, if I come up here and I try and ping something, let's try and ping Google's DNS server. This is Google's DNS. If I go test, you can see that I'm getting replies from Google's DNS. This means that obviously our internet connection is working properly. Now it'll come back with, you know, our average delay, our packet loss, and our network status. So that's working fine. As I said before, we can also capture. So this saves the capture file to a USB stick. So obviously you must have a USB stick installed. Then what you'll do is you'll select the device and start the capture. Keep in mind that, as you can see down there, this file gets very big very quickly because we're recording all of the traffic that's coming in over the network interface, which, as you saw before, was about 23 megabits per second. So it's going to go up very quickly. So I'll just stop that there now. But that saved a 37 megabyte capture file to our USB stick, which we can open later in Wireshark. So it's very useful for, probably not so much on the NVR8PRO6 that we're doing this on, but bigger recorders it's useful on, say, if you're running into networking issues. So that's probably everything on this page here. The last page is our log page. Now log shows you any and all events that the recorder has experienced. So let's say, for instance, an IP camera went offline for some reason. That's listed in here. If we've got intrusion detection on a PTZ camera, such as the one over on camera 6 that we've got here, or when users are logging in. or channels logging in, that's still an IP camera being logged in, but or changing hard drives. We can filter this by date. So at the top here we can filter by date. At the moment obviously we're quite wide, so let's say if I come over here and I select March the 3rd and I select March the 4th and search. So now I've filtered that down into a different date range. You can see that I've been changing encode configurations on here. That's what's being shown there. And I've saved some other display information. So if I want to filter that a little further, I can come in here and select one of these items. So system, config, storage, alarm, record, account, clear, playback, connection. So systems, anything that happens on the recorder itself. Config is anytime any configuration changes were made. Storage is any time there's anything wrong with your hard disks, for instance, or it's changing between hard disks for recording. Alarm is an alarm input, whether that be an alarm on the recorder itself or whether that be an alarm on a camera. Record shows you any record events. So say if we're recording on an alarm, for instance. Account, it shows you anytime anyone's logged in or changed anything account-wise. So if I search, you can see when users have logged in and out. So again, this is me logging into the recorder and connecting. Clear will show you anytime logs were cleared. So on this machine we haven't cleared any logs. Playback obviously will show you any playback details anytime we've played back a file on this recorder. And connection will show you anytime we've made a remote connection or cameras have connected. So as an example, if I come back into here and go playback and click on details, it will show me more information about what was played back. So if I wanted to see what files had been viewed by a user, I could come in here and find out that, well, user 888888 viewed these files on this date. So on the 3rd of the 3rd at 1844, they viewed the recordings from 2:21 p.m. that afternoon. And we can flick between events here so that you don't have to go the whole way back. So I'll right click to go back out of there. And yeah, that's pretty much everything that you need to know about the info section on the VIP Vision NVR8PRO6. If you've got any other questions or anything else that you're hoping to find out about these recorders, simply leave a comment below or send an email to sales@rhinoco.com.au and we'll help you out with that. Hope you found this video informative. Thanks for watching.